Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel Zero Analyst. This is the day 19 of our 30 days Python series. Today we're going to build a project in Python, which is going to be a data cleaning project. So basically it is going to ask you for the data set. So you'll be giving the dataset name and the dataset path. It is going to clean the data for you within just few seconds. Okay. So we're going to build these applications from scratch completely, which you can also include in your resume. So this is going to be absolutely mind-blowing project. So let's go ahead and see how the project is going to look like. So we are going to write all those code. You can see it here, which is I have already created. So we're going to write every code from scratch, and whatever we have covered in last 18 days, we're going to use all those concepts, whatever we have basically learned, and using all those concepts we're going to build this project. So this application name is called data cleaning app. Okay, so we are going to use this data cleaning app to clean some data. So let's first see some of the messy data. So for example, I have this data which is called orders. So let's go ahead and see this data in finders. So let's open this data. So now I can see this data has a lot of missing values. Here you can see all the missing values are here. This data also has some null values as well. We will see that as well. Okay, so this data also have a lot of records. So I think it has 1000 plus records, and it has some duplicates records as well. Okay, so the application that we will build, that is going to automatically clean the data. That means it is going to automatically remove the duplicates. It's going to fill those missing values. It's going to delete those records wherever these informations are missing, like the names, category, all those things. Okay, and whenever it sees the number column, so that's going to replace those record with a mean. Okay, so this is what it is going to do. Let's see some more data that we have. So we have employees data that also has some nulls and some duplicates, and we have Walmart data, we have sales data. So all those data we're going to practice. Now what this application is going to do is that it is going to kind of first check the total duplicates. It is going to save those duplicates in another file. Then it is going to delete those duplicates, and then it is going to create a new data frame. Then from the new data frame, it is going to replace those missing values, and it is also going to drop those missing values wherever the value is kind of non-numbers. If it is a number, then it is going to replace with that particular column mean, and if it is a non-numbers, it is going to kind of drop that entire rows. Okay, this is what this function is going to do, and at then it is going to give you two output. One is called total duplicate records and the data set, and also it is going to give you the clean data sets. So let's see the function that we will be creating. So I have already created the functions. Let me just show you the function that we'll be creating from scratch. Okay, so I'm just importing the functions which I have created as a data cleaning app. So let me just go ahead and run it. You can see this function is now imported. Now I can go ahead and test it, right? So before test it, you can see I have this which is called sales record. Okay, so I can test on this data set which is called sales record. So first let's check our program on this Walmart sales data sets, and we can just open in finders, and you can see this Walmart sales has kind of a lot of missing values. So you can see we have a few missing values here. Okay, so wherever we have missing values, and maybe we have some duplicates. Okay, so I will intentionally add some more duplicates again, maybe here. Okay, so you can see these are duplicates. Now let's go ahead and save it, and let's go ahead and test it, that if our function can kind of determine those duplicates or not. So this is the data that we're going to test. Okay, so first I would just go ahead and call this application which is called data cleaning app. You can see it is asking two things. One is called path and one is called the file name. Okay, so we need to give those two things. Let me select this, and inside this parenthesis, first I need to give the file path. So the file we're checking, which is going to be this one, which is called walmart.xlsx. So we're going to put the file path. So that's going to be, you can see it is asking for the data path, right? So the path is Walmart. Now you need to ensure that this path is in the same directory where you have this Jupyter notebook and where you have this applications which I have created. Okay, then only it's going to work. So it's the path. Next it is asking for something else which is called the name. So the name, I can just tell the name is going to be something called maybe Walmart sales. Okay, Walmart sales data sets, something like data sets. Okay, so this is the name I'm giving, which is called Walm sales data set. Okay, now let's go ahead and run this. Let's see what this function is going to do. So it's saying thank you for sharing the data set, and it is doing something. You can see it is giving some nice a timer, so that means it is doing something. Now you can see it has done something. It's saying getting the data set check, wearing seconds, and it's giving something called none, and it's saying it's Excel. So it is checking the data types. It's the Excel because we have given an Excel data set. Then you can see it has basically done a lot of other things. It's saying that the number of rows, which is 29 at the moment, and the columns, which is 9. Then it is saying that the total number of duplicates that our data set has, which is 10. You can see it here. Then it is saying that waiting for again seconds. So we are getting some null, which we will be fixing it. And then it is saying duplicates record saved as a duplicates records, and here basically it has saved the records as a duplicates. We will see that. And then it is saying removing the duplicates from our main data sets, and then Here you can see that it has removed those records, which is 19 records it has removed. And then it is kind of showing the missing values. You can see missing values we have, like in this column branch we have 4 missing values, in age we have 10 missing values. We can go ahead and check it. Our main data frame is this one. Let's go ahead and check it. So let's check for this age. Okay, so for branch we have 4 missing values. So 1 2 3 4. Okay, so you can see only 4 missing values are there starting from first to last. Okay, so it could identify that. Now it's saying, then it's saying dealing with missing values, waiting seconds, and here it should basically give the seconds. We will fix that. And it's saying invoice ID is a number column and the data type is int, branch is no number column, and all those things are it is showing. Now total missing values is 0. Basically it has removed the missing values, and you can see the missing value is now 0. So now you can see the final last is saying completely the task and data clean and export it as a clean data, and the total rows which is 15 and the total columns is 9. That means it has cleaned the data, it has duplicated, removed this duplicated. Also it has removed all those missing records where all those rows where we had missing values, because if you see we had total 29 rows and with 9 columns, and we are left with 15 only rows. That means it has deleted all those kind of 14 records, but there was only 10 duplicates. That means 4 it has deleted where we had, which is called the missing values for those branch, because we couldn't replace those branch. So for that it has deleted those records. Okay, that's the reason we can see it here. So let's go ahead and see the data set. Now I can see it has created 2 data sets. One is called Walmart sales clean data, which is this one. One is called duplicates data. So let's go ahead and see the duplicates records. So you see all those records were duplicate in our data set, so we can see it here. Okay, now if you see this one, it says the clean data, so that means this data is a completely clean. Okay, so let's test it for another functions. Okay, so I'm just going to test it for another data set quickly, then we will start writing the code to build this function from scratch. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's say I want to test it for this sales.excel or maybe this orders.csv. Okay, so for that I would just go ahead and say orders.csv. Okay, and the name I want to give it something called maybe orders dataset. Okay, orders datasets, and let's click on run, and you can see it is thank you for sharing the dataset. Now it is doing something. Okay, it's saying getting the dataset checked, and it could check it is a CSV file. It's saying the total number of rows we have, which is called 996, and the column 5, total duplicates 9, which is showing it here. Then it is saying removing the duplicates, save the duplicate record as a duplicates, and then it is kind of showing all the missing values. We have 45 missing values in the sales column, and lastly you would see the last output. Let me just wait for the last output. So here you can see that it's saying completing the task, waiting for seconds, and the data clean, exported as clean data, and the total rows, and you can see the total rows. Now it is left with 983, and the total columns, which is 5. Now if you see the starting, we had a kind of 9 duplicates, 996. Okay, so this is what it done. If in case you want to see the output, so this is the clean data. You can see this is the data is clean, there is no missing values now. And if you see this duplicates, that's going to be this one. So all those data are duplicates. Okay, so this is the applications that you're going to build in this video. Now you can also include this project completely in your resume. You can basically add more parameters. Once you learn this concept, then you can add more parameters and more hyper to this project. Okay, now you can see the project is very simple. It's a Python automation project. That means we're going to build an application that is going to automatically clean the data. Now there are some requirements that I have basically written down here, so that it is going to guide us step by step, like what are the things that we need to do. Okay, so this type of project you will be building when you are working with the real projects, because most of the time the data cleaning takes a lot of time. So you can build your custom application that is going to clean the data, and based on the parameters that you're going to define. So let's see some requirement. It says requirement, please create a Python application that can take a data set and clean the data. Okay, that's the business requirement. It said it should ask for the dataset path and the name. Okay, it's going to ask the dataset and path and name. It should check the number of duplicates and remove all those duplicates. It should keep a copy of all those duplicates. It should check for missing values. Then it says if any column that is numeric, it should replace those null with the mean of that column, else it should drop that rows. Okay, and at the end it should save the data as a clean data, also return the duplicate records and all those clean records. So this is the requirement. Now we are going to build this application completely from scratch. So let's go ahead and kind of create a new Python file. So I'm just going to name it call main.py. Okay, so let me just kind of zoom it a bit So this is the applications. Let's first write down all this requirement on the top so that it is going to be easy for us to kind of know what are the things that you need to do step by step. Okay, so I would just go ahead and in this test, and I'm just going to copy all those requirement and put it here. Okay, so let's first write down something called, this is say data cleaning applications. Okay, let's write down this requirement in a doc string. Okay, now these are just a text, it's not going to kind of do anything. Python is going to ignore it. Okay, so first we need to kind of start with importing the dependencies. Now all the dependencies that I'm going to install, I have already installed in my terminal, which is in my environment. If in case you are just watching this video, you need to make sure that you have all those kind of packages. Okay, so we will be needing a lot of packages today to kind of build these applications. So let's go ahead and open the terminal and let me show you what are the packages that we will need. So you can just write pip list and you will be seeing all the packages that you already have in your virtual environment. Now if you do not know what is virtual environment, you can go through the day one of the video of this Python series and you will learn how to kind of create a virtual environment and how to install all those packages. Okay, so we will be needing one is called pandas. Okay, that's what we need. We need open excel. We would also maybe need a numpy, and importantly we're going to need something called, we need one more which is called xlrd to work with the excel file, and we will need numpy, which we talked about. So I think these are the only kind of main the packages that we need, which is the additional packages, because a lot of packages already there in the Python. So only what you need is the pandas and numpy and kind of this open pyxl and xlrd. Okay, if you do not have these packages, you can just write pip install and just type the package's name, which is called pandas. Okay, if you just write pandas, you would see for me it is just going to tell that okay, already satisfied, because I already have it. So if you do not have it, you can just run this. Okay, so let's first start with importing the dependencies. So I'm just going to say importing dependencies. Okay, now here I'm just going to write whatever the things I need. So I would first need something called import pandas as pt. So this is the first thing I need. I would also need import numpy as np. Okay, then I'm going to need something called time. Okay, import time. I also need import excel. Okay, so this is to work with the excel. Import also I would need import kind of xlrt, and I think what else we need. So yeah, I also need os. Okay, so I would also need os, and I would also need a random to create a random numbers. Okay, which you will see the delay after one task. You see a nice delay message that waiting for the next task. So that is going to happen based on the random functions. So random. Okay, so these are the packages what I think I need at the moment. If in case I needed something, I am going to edit later on. Okay, now let's first write the logic, then we will be creating the functions. Okay, so the first task that I want to kind of do is that I'm going to basically give it something called path. Okay, so I'm going to start with something called data path. So I'm assuming that user is going to enter this data path. Okay, one is this, and user is also going to call data name. Okay, so this two I'm just storing at the moment as an empty string. Okay, because as soon as the user enter the path, next task for us is to just check if that path is actually exist or not. Now we are going to use this test a lot of time while writing the code to debug it. Okay, to see if in case we're doing some mistake, then we will go here and we will check it. Okay, now let's go ahead and start with our main logic. Okay, so first I would just want to check if the path is correct or not. So for that I can simply go ahead and use the if logic, which you have already learned in the day 5 or day 6. So I can go ahead and say if, and I can go ahead and say that if os, as we have already imported the os, so in os there is something called path exist, we can use that functions. Okay, so we can just say if os dot a path dot exist. Okay, now here you just need to give the path that user has entered. Okay, so if this path exists, it is going to basically return you whatever you want to kind of do it here. Otherwise it's going to kind of cancel the functions. Okay, so that is what we want to do it here. So I would just use this here. Now what I want, if this path doesn't exist, then I want to cancel the function. So I would be using not. Basically I'm using the negative here. I'm saying if this path doesn't exist, just print a message called hey please give a right path, and I'm going to cancel the whole function. So whatever I am going to write it down, it is not going to be executed. Okay, so that is what we will be doing. So we're going to say print, and we're going to say please enter correct path. Okay, so that is fine. A nice kind of warning message. And here I'm just going to write something called return. So that means it is going to cancel that applications, the functions. Okay, now this return is not kind of working at the moment, but we will kind of go ahead and edit when we write the actual function. So this is fine. So this is simple if logic. So I'm just going to add something called checking if the path exists. Okay, so one is like if the path doesn't exist, this thing get executed. If the path exists, then we would just need to write a else logic here, right? So you can go ahead and say else. That means either path exists, either path doesn't exist, right? Then I would just go ahead and say let's use it here else logic. So I can go ahead and say that here I want to write all the codes whatever I want to do. Okay, so here I'm assuming that the path exists, that's the reason code came here. Okay, now let's write all our logic here. Okay, now we will say next logic, which is called checking the file type. Okay, or the data type, because we need to, it's very important, we need to ensure that the type that the user is entering, we need to check it, because user may give the CSV file or user may give the Excel file. Okay, so based on that, then we will basically go ahead and do the further application building. Okay, so let's see how we can check the type. Okay, so first, to check the type, we can just go ahead and do it here, something like this. Okay, we can go ahead and say that here once the path exists, then we want to do one more if logic here. We would say if, and then we would go ahead and say that, which is called data dot path. Okay, and dot end with. So there is a function which is called end with. So using end with, you can check any of the string ending with. Okay, whatever the string is ending with. So here you can go ahead and say that, let's go ahead and say that what do you want to check with call dot CSV. Okay, we want to check if the file type is CSV. Okay, so if the file type is CSV, then maybe I can just print a message here called the file type is CSV. So let's go ahead and say print dataset is CSV. Okay, so this is fine. Now else we want to check if in case if the file is Excel. Okay, so I would just add elif function here, because I'm going to add few more kind of if logic here. So I would just copy it again and put it here, and this time I want to check if it is ending with XLSX. Okay, XLSX, which is this one, which is for the Excel, you need to check this extension. Okay, for the CSV you need to check this extension. So if this is true, then I can write a message here called maybe this print dataset is a Excel file. Okay, Excel file. Okay, so this is fine. Now let's go ahead and kind of test it. Whatever we have written, we can go ahead and test it. So I can just go ahead and write one more message here called maybe else, and I can go ahead and write it called print, and we can go ahead and say unknown file type. Okay, so this is fine. So here if in case the file is unknown, then we would again want to cancel the functions. So again, the return is not working at the moment, because when we will build the actual function, that time this return is going to be useful. Okay, now this is fine. Let's test till here. Okay, let's see here if in case our function is working or not. So let's go ahead and give some data path here instead of just giving it empty. So I would just go ahead and give some path here. Okay, for now. So data path. So let's go ahead and check with one of the actual paths. So I'm just going to give a path called maybe something called sales.xl. Okay, let's check if it is kind of working. Sales.xlsx. Okay, now I need to ensure that this path that you are giving, it is in the same directory. You can see my directory is called, which is called in the main directory, which is called 30 days Python. So in the main directory, I have basically this all the files and all this application that I'm building. So it is important that you need to ensure that everything is in the main directory. Like even your virtual environment also must be in the same directory. Okay, so I need to give it as a string. So let's go ahead and give it a string. Let's see if in case if it can identify that if this path exists or not, and then it should return its Excel file or kind of CSV file. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it and check if in case this function is working so far. So let's run it. You can see that dataset is Excel file, and yes, it could identify that dataset is the Excel file. All this happened because the path existed. If the path was incorrect, you would have seen this error message. So let's give it incorrect path and let's see it here now. So let's say I'm just going to give something called like this. Okay, now you know that this doesn't exist. So let's see what happens. I would just go ahead and say that you can see directly it is giving please enter a correct path, because it couldn't identify this path. That's the reason this directly executed this because this path did not existed, so it is giving this message, it is not going to this else block. Okay, so this is perfect, this is what we wanted. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of delete this path for now, and let's start writing the remaining code. So once the path exists, what do you want to do? So we want to kind of read the file, right? We want to read the file using pandas. So I would just go ahead and say that let's start something called data. Okay, and here I'm just going to call pd.read CSV, because here if in case the file type is CSV, then I would want this thing to get executed. So I'm going to kind of read the file. So what is the file? The file is going to be this data path, right, which is going to entered by the users. And I'm going to use something called encoding errors to ensure if any row has any problem, that is not going to kind of give us error while executing these functions. Okay, so for that you can just write something called, after giving the path you can write encoding errors, and you can write something called ignore in small letter. Okay, so this is fine. Now this is creating something called data. Even if it is kind of Excel, I want this to create something called data. Okay, so the name I want to give the same thing, even if it is Excel, even if it is kind of CSV. Okay, so this is fine. Let's go now. Here I just need to change it to Excel, right? Here I'm reading Excel file, so let's go ahead and say Excel. So here what I'm doing is that I'm kind of creating a data frame based on the path that I have, based on the data set I have collected from the users. Okay, so once this is done, now our path is ready, our data frame is ready, which is called data. Now we will start jumping, solving the actual problem. So what is the actual problem? So the problem is that it should check for the dataset path and name. This is done. It should check the number of duplicates and number of remove the duplicates. Okay, so before that we would return a nice message which kind of shows that how many records we have in the data sets. So for that we can just go ahead and something called which is showing number of records. Okay, so as we have already created, which is called this data data, which is called this data frame, so we can use this data frame, and along with the shape we would able to display our kind of number of records. So we can just print message here. We would just go ahead and say f string, and I can just go ahead and say that data set contain total columns, total rows, so total rows, and here I want to replace with the rows, and in the next line maybe I want to show the total columns. Okay, and I want to put the total columns here. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can find the total columns. Okay, so there is a function which is called shape. So shape returns kind of the total columns. Let's go ahead and create a dummy data set to show you whatever I'm going to do in the main function. So I'm going to reuse one of the file from yesterday. So let's go ahead and kind of see this notepad. Let's go ahead and copy one of the file from here. Okay, just to explain the topic. So let's say I have a data set here. Okay, let me just go ahead and first import panda spd, import pandas spd. Yeah, numpy also required. Import numpy as np. You can see that I have the data set here. Okay, which says df, and this is the data set that I have just created in front of you. Okay, now we want to see the kind of shape. Okay, shape means it's going to return the total number of rows and the columns. So if you type something called df3, so this data frame name is df3, you can just write df3.shape. So you're getting the result in a tuple. The first element is kind of the rows, and the second element is the columns. You can see 3 columns and 5 rows, right? So you can use something like this. If you say 0 from this tuple, if you want to exit the first record, that's going to be 0 index, right? And I can see you're getting 5. If you say 1, you will be getting the number of columns, which is 3. So this logic what we will be using to print the total number of columns and rows. Okay, so here I'm just going to say that this data that I am creating, so data dot shape, here I'm going to say I want 0th access, the first element of this tuple, so that's going to automatically give me the total number of rows, and this is 1, that is going to give me the total number of columns. Okay, so this is fine. So this kind of shows the data set has the total number of columns and rows before doing any cleaning. Okay, now we will start our cleaning. Okay, start cleaning here. Okay, so cleaning, first task when you do a cleaning, the first task is to check the number of duplicates that your data set has. Okay, now we have already covered how to check number of duplicates, how to check missing values, how to kind of deal with the missing values yesterday block. If you have not gone through that video, you can go through that video. Even you will be learning today as well. Okay, so let's see how we can find the number of duplicates. So you can go ahead and say the data duplicated. Okay, data dot duplicated. So this basically return you the number of duplicates as a true or false. So if in case you want to see this here in this our test, let's go ahead and see in the test. So here if you see, we don't have any duplicates at the moment. So let's create one duplicates. Okay, so let's say I'm going to say one more one here. Okay, let's create one duplicate. So one. So let's create a duplicate here, maybe something called after this 5 I'm saying 1, and obviously so this iPhone would going to be one more iPhone which I will be adding after this, and I'm going to say the price is going to be one more same price. Okay, which I will be adding after this, and let's run it. And now if you see this records and this records, this is a duplicates, right? Now if you want to see the total duplicates, you can simply write here df3 duplicated, and if you just run it, you see there is one duplicate which is the 5th record. So this is how you see the duplicates. Now if you just add something called sum, and that is going to return you the total duplicates. You can see total duplicate is 1. Okay, so this is how you find the total duplicates. This is what we will be using. Now if in case you want to kind of see that duplicate records, so for that you just need to use this boolean functions inside this df3, and inside this brackets you can just use this boolean function that is going to return that duplicated records. So this is the duplicated records. So this one I can save name something called dup rec. Okay, duplicate record. So this what we will do, and this what we will do. Okay, so let's first go ahead and kind of print the number of duplicates that our data set has. So for that what I will do is that I would just go ahead and say data dot duplicated dot sum. So it is going to check the entire data set, and it is going to check the total number of duplicates. So here I can just go ahead and kind of show it here is let's go ahead and kind of put it here. Let's go ahead and say call duplicates. Okay, so duplicates, and let's add one more variable called total duplicates. Okay, total duplicate, and here I'm just going to kind of use the same function which is this one, but I'm just going to add a sum. Okay, so this is the variable I'm storing all the duplicates boolean conditions which I will be reusing while removing the duplicates, and here I'm just storing the total sum. Okay, so this is fine. You can see we are kind of checking the duplicates here, so we can add a nice line here called checking duplicates. Okay, so this is very simple. So far we have just used basic functions. Okay, now this is fine. Next, what do you need? Once we have the duplicates, right, we want to show the duplicates, right? So for that we want to print a nice message. We can say that again formatting, which is called small f, and we can say dataset has total duplicates. Okay, duplicates records or rows, whatever you want to call it. So here I am just going to put that number of duplicates which is called this total duplicates. Okay, now this is fine. You can see this message is kind of kind of showing a nice message. Now next, what I want, once the total duplicate is printed, next I would want to kind of remove all those duplicates, right? And before removing it, I would capture those duplicates. Now to capture it, we will be using the same logic. So we can go ahead and say that data of this boolean condition. What is the boolean condition? Which is this in duplicates. Okay, if I just run this, it is automatically going to give the total number of duplicates. That is what I can save it something called duplicate records, a variable. Okay, so now you can see this is kind of returning this is kind of returning. Let's see why it is giving error. So it shouldn't be. Yeah, you can see this is kind of returning from this data all this the boolean condition, and based on this boolean condition it is going to return the all those records. So wherever it can see that is a duplicates, you would kind of go ahead and you will be getting that in this data frame which is called duplicate records. Okay, so duplicate is kind of captured. Now what we want to do is that we want to store that, we want to kind of save that in our main directory. Okay, because we would need to record, we will need to save those in the directory. So we can add a nice message called maybe something here called saving the duplicates. Okay, so how do you save it? If in case you want to save any data frame, so you can simply go ahead and say that this duplicate, and you can say something called 2. Let's save it as a CSV. Okay, now here we want to save it as a CSV. Now here one thing I am going to use, that is called simple, which is called duplicates. Okay, dot CSV as the extension I need to use the CSV. I would just make sure that index is none. Okay, I want to ensure that the index is not being saved, otherwise it's get complicated. Okay, so here what I want to do is that I want to save a nice name. Okay, so the name, you see, when we ask for the data path, we also ask for something called name. So this name I'm going to save it here along with this. Okay, so that we can identify which duplicate it is. Okay, so for that I would just need to use a kind of a formatting here, and you see now I'm getting the name. After the name I want to add something called underscore, then duplicates, then CSV. Okay, so whatever the name the user is going to enter, that's how it is going to capture the duplicates. Okay, so the duplicate is kind of saved. Next task, what do we want to do? We want to delete those duplicates, right? So we would go ahead and kind of delete those duplicates here. Okay, you can say deleting duplicates. Okay, so let's see how to delete the duplicates. To delete the duplicates, you can simply go ahead and say write data, and you can say dot, and you can say drop duplicates. Okay, now this function usually drop the duplicates. You just need to write something called in place equals true if you want to delete the duplicates from the actual data from which you do not want. If you just run this query, it is going to delete the duplicates, and the result that you will be getting, that is kind of non-duplicates record. So let me show you this function here. Okay, so now you know that this our data set has this record as a duplicate, so we have kind of this 5 record is a unique. Okay, let's go ahead and see that if in case if we just say df3 dot duplicate it. Okay, drop duplicates, you can see now we are getting clean data, right? But it did not deleted the duplicates from the actual data frame, which you do not want, because we want to keep that as it is. Okay, you see that is kept the same, but here this result is kind of the unique, all those unique records. So here I can save this in something called maybe unique, unique records. Okay, so this is what we are going to do now. Then on this unique record, we will be doing the further kind of cleaning, like replacing with null, missing values, all those things. Okay, so this unique record is going to be a data frame which doesn't have any duplicates. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Now if I just show you this unique records, you will see this unique record has non-duplicates records. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. So let's go to our main py and let's see how we can achieve it. Okay, so we're saying deleting duplicates. Okay, we're saying data dot drop duplicates. Okay, so that means it is going to drop the duplicates, and this is going to return all those unique record. Okay, the unique record I want to save it something called df. Okay, all this thing which is kind of this creating a backup for the duplicates and removing the duplicates, we only want to do if our kind of this total duplicate has if we have some duplicates, right? So this total duplicate must be greater than 0. So for that I'm going to add if logic here before kind of you can see before kind of capturing this duplicates, before kind of storing this duplicate, I'm going to add a if logic here. Okay, so for that I would just go ahead and say if, and I would say if this total duplicate is greater than 0, if this total duplicate is greater than 0, then I want to create a backup. Okay, so I'm going to put this inside this if logic. So that means if this total duplicate is more than 0, then only I want to create this and save this as a duplicate. Otherwise I don't want to kind of do those things, right? Now this is going to ensure that if our data has some duplicates, then only we want to create a backup. Otherwise we don't want to create a backup. Okay, so this is fine. Now this one I'm just going to keep outside the if logic, because here I'm going to write all my the other logic. Okay, so here so far we have kind of deleted the duplicates and we have the clean data which is called df. Okay, this is a unique data set. Okay, data frame. So now here next task for me is going to kind of find all those missing values. Okay, to find all those missing values, we can simply go ahead and say df. So let's say kind of something called find missing values. Okay, so to find missing values, we can simply go ahead and say df dot is null. Okay, so this is null returns the total missing value. So I can just go ahead and show you here. Let's go ahead and kind of run this this again, and let's see how many missing values our df3 has. So df3, and if you say just write something called is null, and if you just run it, you see that wherever it has missing values, it is returning true. Okay, here missing values, you can see here no missing values, here one missing values, here two missing values. So if you want to count the missing values for each column, so you can just write something called dot and you can simply sum. Okay, so you can see order ID no missing values, which is 0, product ID missing value 1, and the price missing value 2. Okay, so this is what we want to basically print in the results, that okay, number of missing values for each column. If you want to add one more sum, and that is going to sum up all the true, that means the total 3 missing values we have. So we will need both of these things. We will print both of these things. Okay, let's first df dot is null, and let's say dot sum, let's say dot again one more sum, and this is going to be our total missing values. Okay, so let's kind of save it in a variable called total missing value. Okay, value or records, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just saving this in a variables called total missing values. Now I would need to find out the missing values for each column. So for that I would just go ahead and say that something called missing. So for that I can directly print it, but even if you want I can just show it, missing value columns. Okay, so for each columns I would be getting missing values. For that I would just need to kind of save till here. Okay, so this is fine. Now we want to display two messages. One is called total number of missing values and missing values for each column. So that is what we will do. So let's go ahead and kind of do that here. Now what we want to do is that we want to kind of show the total number of missing values, and also we want to show kind of this missing value for each columns. Okay, now we want to kind of just print this message. So we can just go ahead and say print, and we can go ahead and say that nice message call using F formatting. We can say that dataset has total missing value colon, and I'm just going to put this total missing values here. Okay, let's add one more message which is called print, and we can say that again F formatting, dataset contain missing value by column. Okay, and I would just need to show the result in a new kind of line. So for that I can just add new line like this, and here I can just put my variables name, which is called this. Okay, because this returns missing value by each of the columns. Okay, these are the things done. Now this is how we have kind of shown how many missing values are there, right? Now if in case our dataset has some missing values, what do you want to do? We obviously want to clean that, right? So here we go ahead and say that dealing with missing values. Okay, so there is two options. We have something called fill now, and we have something called drop now, which I have covered in the yesterday video. So we are going to do both of the things. So let's quickly see both of the functions here. Okay, now if you want to see the kind of the data set, let's say we have a data set which is called df3, and if you say the df3 at the moment has this missing values, right, and this missing values. So if I just go ahead and say that drop now, okay, and I can give a subset that I want to drop based on this product. Okay, so I can just use a subset, and I can just go ahead and say that based on this product. Okay, based on this product, if in case this product column has any missing values, just drop it. Okay, so we can just go ahead and run it. You see that has dropped. Now for this column which we have a price, for here I don't want to drop it, but I want to replace with mean. So for that I can simply go ahead and say df3, and I can just put the column name which is called price, and I can go ahead and say that what I want to do, if this column is the price, and for that I would just need to say dot fill now. So this fill now is going to find out if this price has any null values, and it's going to replace with something called 0. If in case I give it 0, it's going to replace by 0. But if in case I want to replace it with the mean, so then I can define the mean here. So mean, I would just again mean for the same column. So I would just give this column dot mean, which I have again covered yesterday. You can see now it has kind of replaced by the mean. Okay, these two. So this is what we are going to do here. Okay, so let's see how. But here is one more task that we will be doing. So we will first check the column type. If the column type is kind of integers, if the column type is kind of number, then only we would replace with kind of mean. Otherwise we will simply drop that row, because we would not be able to deal with this product. You can deal with it basically using the kind of mode, but I'm not going to use it because maybe some column are not that important, some rows we cannot find the mode, right? So for that I'm just going to kind of use drop this row. If in case the row has any name missing or any category name missing, which is kind of non numbers, I'm going to kind of replace it with, going to drop that column, and if it is kind of price columns or maybe quantity column, I'm going to kind of replace with the mean. Okay, now you can add more parameters. So I'm going to show you how you can find each columns and their data types. So for that you can simply write df3 and you can write d types. Okay, so d types is going to return each columns and their data types. You can see it here. Okay, so each columns and their data types, I have it here. Okay, now this is one way. The second way, what you can do is that you can write each columns and their subset. Let's say the column, that means I want to check for the price, and after that I can just say dot d types. Okay, and you can see now I'm getting something called float. Okay, if I want to check it for maybe next column, which would be something called maybe this kind of product, you would see it is going to be d types, and that is going to be kind of something called object, which is kind of showing as a o. There's a functions which is called df3, which I have covered again yesterday. The df3 dot columns, it's going to return you all the columns, you can see. Okay, now we can loop through all those columns and then we can check each columns and their data types. So what you can do is that you can just save it in something called maybe columns. Okay, now I can just look through. I can say for call in this columns, and what I want to do is that I want to check each column and their data types. Okay, so for that I can simply go ahead and say that df3, and in the brackets I can just put this call. Okay, and I can simply here I can check the data types. What is this call data types? Because see, here I'm just mentioning this, and I can say that d types. Okay, so this is going to kind of print all those columns and their data types, right? Here I can check if this column is kind of what, if this column is equal to something called, maybe if this column is from int or float. Okay, so for that you can use this in logic here, and you can write int or you can write float. So it's going to check if this column is int or float. So I can just go ahead and kind of use a if it is, then what I would want to kind of print a message called this columns. Okay, so that's going to be kind of this columns, something like this column, and I would just put the column name. Okay, and I would also show the data types. Okay, something called data types. What is the data type? So for that you can just copy this till here. Okay, put inside another records, that's going to keep it that. Else you can just add else logic. So else also you would want to basically see the data type, so you just need to put the same print message. So let's see what this function is going to do. Okay, now I can see I'm getting the output. So first it's checking for the first column and that values, which is called this 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1. Okay, these are the order ID, and you can see the column name is order ID, the data type is int, and you can see the data type is int. It is showing kind of twice. So first it is giving this, which is column of this, and then we are giving this data types, and we are getting this message. Okay, that is fine. So you can see it is an int. Okay, now the second column, that is kind of again this, which is called, you can see iPhone, and here you can see the data types, and this is what we can see it here. Okay, now we are going to use the same logic but little differently. Okay, let's go to the functions and let's see how we can actually. Now what I want here is that if the column data type is kind of int or float, I want to replace it with the mean. So for that I would just go ahead and say that columns, let's create a columns variable and store all the columns. So how do you get all the columns, right? So we have something called, which is called data, which is df. So from the df I can say dot columns, right? So that's going to return me all the columns, right? So we got all the columns. Now what I want to do is that I want to first check each columns and their data types, because see, if the column data type is int, then I want to replace it with the kind of mean, or if it is kind of float, I want to replace it with the mean. Otherwise I want to kind of delete that rows. Okay, so we are going to use two logic. One is called something called, which is fill now, and we're going to use something called, which is called drop now. Okay, so these two logic we are using. We will only use fill now for basically int and float columns, and for drop now we will just kind of use the drop now for any object type. Okay, rest all the columns basically we will be using drop now. So let's see how do we check the columns data. So we have got the column, so I can just go and say for call in this columns, which I'm getting from the main data frame, which is the unique rows data frame. Now what I want to check here is that I want to check the columns, this column data types. Now how do you get the column data type, right? So we can go ahead and say that here if, and we can say call, and df of what, call d type. Okay, d type equals, or I can use in. Okay, you can use both, so I can use in here, and is from kind of float or int. Okay, if they are from float or int, so I'm saying if data of column in float or int, then what I want to do, I maybe want to show a nice message that it's a kind of float or int, and again that's not mandatory, but we can ignore it. What we want to do is that's the main task, right? If in case this data type is float or int, we want to replace that missing values, okay, that is using fill now. So that is the reason we are checking that specific column's name. So how do you replace using fill now? So you can simply write this df, and you can say that df dot kind of df dot that specific column that you're working, and you can say something called here fill now. And what you cannot do is that you can just write it what you want to fill with. Okay, so we want to fill with mean. So for that, this specific columns and that columns dot mean, if I just type, I will be getting that columns mean here. Okay, so here I'm just kind of replacing that columns, you can see that specific columns where the column type was int or float using mean. Okay, so this is fine. Now I would just need to store the same data in the same column again. So for that, I would either use kind of in place equals true, or I can simply replace that specific columns, that data frame of that columns, all the records based on this mean. Okay, only here if kind of this is a float or int. Okay, but I'm using fill now, so it is not going to replace if there is a kind of already records. It's not going to fill that, but if it is a missing, then only it is going to kind of fill with mean. Okay, so same thing, let me just show you it here. Okay, so what I'm doing here is that I am saying that, let me just kind of cancel it, let me cancel this as well. Okay, so here if you see, we have order ID, product, and the price. Okay, now we have some missing in the price. Let's go ahead and see if in case this function is going to kind of do that or not. So we can go ahead and say here is that something called df3 of call, and what I want is kind of fill now. Okay, now this is fine. Then what I want to fill with is called mean, right? So to get the mean of this column, I can simply go ahead and say that dot mean, and if I kind of run it, so here let me just put something called pass. Okay, so this is fine. At the end, I would just need to store this in the actual data frame. I can use in place, or I can just store it back. Okay, so here I'm just using assignment operator. So whatever the data frame I have missing values, I'm just replacing with mean, and I'm just storing back into this data frame of column. So let me just go ahead and kind of print the data frame now, which is called df3. Okay, so you will see that all those missing values are gone and they are replaced with which is called mean. So this is the logic that we'll be using. Now if you see for the columns where the product was kind of this, it is still showing none, right? So we need to deal with that as well. Also for that, what I can do is, instead of giving it pass, so I can just go ahead and kind of build another logic which is called df3, and df3 drop now we will need to use, but we need to ensure that we're only dropping based on that columns where we have kind of the data type as an object, right? So for that, automatically it is number data types or float, or it is going to be object data types, right? So for here, I'm just going to say df3, and I would just go ahead and say what I want is that called drop now, and here I would just need to use a subset. Okay, subset what? So subset is going to be that specific column. Okay, so usually I put the column name, right? So the column name is going to be, maybe that is going to be product. Okay, so that is fine, and this is simply going to drop that, right? But either I can use in place true, or I can just assign it back to our main data frame, which is called df3. Okay, so here I'm just updating it. Okay, so I would just go ahead and say here hash updating the data frame after the dropping those columns where we have the product as a none. Let's go ahead and check it now. So you can see now it is kind of updated. Okay, now this is one way you can use. Again, the second way, which is called in place a true. So let me just show you, if in case you want to use that way as well, that's going to work fine. Let me just create it again, and let's go ahead and see if in case we can use that. Okay, so for that, you can just go ahead and cancel it, and you can just add something called in place equals true. Okay, so if you just run it, you see that does the same thing. Okay, so anything you want, you are comfortable, you can use both. You can see that kind of drop that specific columns, and remaining are replaced with the mean, right? So this is what we're going to do. We can use this logic or that logic. So let's go ahead and kind of do it here. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, all those columns, I'm iterating through each of these columns, and I'm saying if the column is kind of from float or int, I'm saying that, okay, fill with the min. Okay, that is fine. If in case it's a float or int, what else I want to do, right? So I could go ahead and kind of use this else logic here to kind of do the next task also. Okay, next what I want to do is that I would just go ahead and next I want to delete that row if that row has any kind of non-number values. Like if I just go to Excel, let's say this is our row, and here I would want to check if this column is a numbers, I would able to replace with mean. But if this column is missing, so I would just go ahead and entire delete entire of this records. Okay, that is what I would be doing, because we cannot get this name, we do not know which city we got the sale, but for sale amount we can use the replace mean. Okay, so this is what the technique that we use while cleaning the data sets. Okay, so what I want else, I would just go ahead and say that I want something like this, which is called df. Let's go ahead and see df and dot drop now. Okay, so drop now what I would use a subset, otherwise it's going to drop everything, so which I do not want. So subset is going to be the column. Okay, now I'm going to use in place true. Okay, so let's kind of write a message here kind of, okay, dropping all rows with kind of missing records for non number column. Okay, so this is fine. Now here you can just add a message call kind of replacing or maybe filling, whatever you want to call it. Okay, filling mean for numeric columns all rows. Okay, wherever we have numeric columns and the information is missing, that's where we are doing it. Okay, so this is fine. This is kind of we are using in place, so this is going to kind of automatically update it. Now here I have not used in place, so I am using kind of assignment operator, so it's going to automatically assign it whatever basically changes we are doing it here. But I'm using fill now, so it is only going to assign for those records where we have missing values. Okay, now this logic is very important for you to understand. So here first I am kind of checking the data types using if logic. If it is true, if it is a number or float, then only I'm doing it, otherwise I'm kind of dropping that entire row. Okay, so this logic you need to understand. So once this is done, what else we want to do, right? So all the tasks are completed now. Okay, so now the data frame that we are left with, this is called df, that is a clean data. So we would just now would want to display the results, right? So I think we have already shown you the total missing records and missing records by each of these columns. Okay, so which is kind of great. So what I want now is that I want to kind of show a nice message that data is clean, and now whatever the total records we are left with. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and do here something called print, and here write a nice message called something called data is clean. Okay, so now data is clean, so we need to export it, right? We need to export the data. So for that, let's first go ahead and say that exporting the data set. So we would say kind of nice message call first of all that print congrats data set is cleaned. Okay, and we can show the total row and the total results as well. So we can go ahead and say that here data set is cleaned and number of rows, and here I would just put the rows and number of columns. Here I would want to put the columns. Okay, using another kind of this placeholders. Okay, so I would just use a F formatting here. Now how do I get the number of rows? So for that I would just use the df functions, right? So let's go ahead and see the number of rows. So put df dot shape, okay, and shape of 0, it's going to give us the number of rows, right? So this is what I'm going to use it here, and let's put it number of 1 here instead of 0. This is going to give us the number of columns. Okay, so number of rows and the number of columns, maybe I want to kind of print it in the next line, so I would just use \n. So that's going to add this kind of number of rows and number of columns in the next line. Okay, so this is fine. Now we would want to kind of save this data, right? Save this clean data, right? So for that I can simply go ahead and say df dot to csv. Okay, so we are saving the data. Now here I would just go ahead and put a dataset name, and the dataset name is going to be something called clean data dot csv. Okay, we are saving it as a csv, and here I can give the name that I have collected from the user. So for that I would just go ahead and check what is the name I've collected. So that's something called data name. Okay, So let's go ahead and kind of put it using a formatting here, and I'm just going to add a data frame name using underscore, and this is kind of fine. So this is going to export the data, this line of code, right, using the pandas data frame, and we are using 2CSV. It's kind of exporting the data set. I would need to ensure that index is kind of none because I don't want to see that bulk index. So here I'm just going to write something called saving the clean data set. Okay, so that is it. Now everything that we wanted, it is kind of done. Now we want to kind of show a nice message that print something called dataset is saved. Okay, so dataset is saved, so we want to just kind of show this nice message. Okay, so dataset is saved, and that is it. Now we would just try it with one of the function, and then we would kind of see if in case we need to make any changes. So for me it looks kind of perfect for now. So dataset is clean, dataset is saved, and we see a nice message. Okay, let's see if in case we need to do anything else. Let me just have a quick look. Let's say this is fine, dataset is saved, this is also kind of fine. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and test it, and then we would try to see if it is working or not. Okay, then we would try to implement some more functions here. So let's go ahead and kind of right click and test it. Okay, so to test it, first of all, I would need this, right? I would need to give this dataset name as well, and this path as well. Okay, so let's try with the path called maybe this sales.xls. Okay, so sales.xlsx. Okay, so this is the file path. You can see it is in the same directory. So let me just go ahead and hide it, and then this dataset name I'm just going to call, maybe kind of call Jan sales, something random name. Okay, so these two things are mandatory, so we would just go ahead and kind of now run the function to see if it is working. Okay, so right click, run in terminal. So we're getting some error. So read excel got an expected keyword argument encoding errors. Okay, yeah, so there is a mistakes that I have done in excel. You don't have to define encoding, so let's go ahead and fix it. So here I don't need this encoding error, so let's kind of fix it. And encoding errors only require for this CSV file. Okay, so the dataset that I have given, it was an Excel file, so that was the reason I was getting error. So let's go ahead and now execute it again. So run in terminal. Okay, now I can see that we kind of see the data is clean, number of rows which is 15, and number of record is 10, dataset is saved. Okay, so let's kind of go ahead and kind of see from the starting. So it is started from here. It's saying that dataset is Excel file. Yes, that is correct. Dataset contain total 24 rows. That is correct. Even if you want to check it, we can just go ahead and open in kind of Excels to see how many rows we have. So you can see we have 25 rows with one header, so that means we have 24 rows. Okay, so that is fine. Let's go back and let's check. Now if you see the total column that we had, which is called 10 columns. Okay, that is also correct. Again verify it. We have total 10 columns, which is still J. Okay, so total number of dataset has a duplicates of 4, which you can see it here. Dataset has the total missing values, which is 17. Each columns and their missing values, you can see it here. Column ID, their missing values, column ID, their missing values. Okay, that's kind of perfectly fine. Then we are here, we are checking data types. Okay, so data type is int, and what you're saying is that a value is trying to, that's kind of the message. We don't have to read it, but we will be reading the next message, which is kind of the next print message. Okay, so here is that congrats, dataset is clean, and the number of rows, that is 15, and number of column, that is now 10. So that means earlier it was kind of 24, I think 24 or 10. So now it is kind of left with 15 and 10s. Okay, so we may have some more print messages. We just need to check the missing values, the total number of missing values. I think I did printed that. So dataset has total missing values, which is 17. Total missing values by columns, which is this. Yeah, this is kind of showing it here. Okay, so this is kind of perfectly fine. Now we just need to convert it into a function so that it kind of automatically work, and we would be able to import in our this CSV file to kind of, we would be able to import it as a module to kind of use it. Okay, so for that we will just convert it into a function. So let's see how we can convert into a functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and define a function here. Okay, maybe here let's go ahead and comment these two things for now. Okay, now I would also want to implement something else, which is called random. We will be doing once we are in the inside the functions. Okay, let me just comment it out. So let's go ahead and kind of first define a function here. Okay, so let's go ahead and say define a function called def, and we want to call it something called data cleaning master. Okay, data cleaning masters, something like unique name. You can give any name that you want. So this should take two parameters. One is called the path, so we can just go ahead and say we were looking for path. Okay, and what you want to look for is called this, which is called data name. Okay, so data name and the data path, this is what we will be asking from the users. Okay, so the function should take something called this colon, and inside this everything is going to execute it. Okay, so let me just copy everything and put one indentations. Okay, so that it goes inside the functions. Now everything that is happening inside the functions. Okay, so first we want to kind of print a nice message here inside the functions called thank you for sharing the data set. Okay, but that is only we want to print if in case the file is kind of correct. Okay, or we want to print, we can print it here as well also, kind of that please enter the correct path. So if in case the file is incorrect, but before that let's kind of print a nice message, thank you for giving the file path. Okay, so for that we would just add a print message called thank you for giving the details. Okay, so this is fine, thank you for giving the details and a nice message. So then we start working on the task. Okay, so here what I want to do is that I would just go ahead and implement this return. So if in case now this function, the file path doesn't exist, this return is going to cancel the function. It's going to return this message, please enter correct path, and this return means it is going to eliminate that remaining everything. Okay, this is the reason we added this return. Okay, so that is fine. We also want to comment it out as well. Okay, so this both the returns are now working fine. What else I want to do, as soon as somebody give the data set, first I want to show a loader or maybe a timer that it is kind of going to say that okay, please wait, we are checking the data types, the file types. Okay, so that is what I want to kind of put it here. Okay, so that is what we can achieve it using a random and the time, the library that I have inbuilt. So let me show it here again. These things I have covered in the earlier as well also. So I can go ahead and say import time, import which is called random. Okay, now these two functions kind of give you these functions. Okay, if you see the random dot rand int, and if you give a range called 1 to basically 5, so it is going to kind of give you a random numbers. So you can store that in something called num. Okay, that's fine. Now what I want is that something called time dot sleep. So this is going to delay the execution of any code by specific seconds. So let me just comment it out. Let's say, let me just put it kind of 3 here. Okay, well, now just to show you, you see it's saying delaying by 3 seconds. Okay, 1 2 3. Now you see that code got executed. Now before that I can print a message, right? I can just go ahead and say here I can just say that print, and I can say that delaying by, and I can just print that at 3 seconds. Okay, second. Okay, you can say delaying by 3 seconds, please wait. I can add a please wait here, right? I can just go ahead and say please, let me just edit before, right? I can say please wait delaying by 3 seconds. Okay, please wait delaying by 3 seconds, and then you kind of see this timer and you see your kind of this nice delay message. Okay, this is kind of interacting functions. Now this is not mandatory. Again, if you want to include, you can include it. So how you can include it? Using these two functions. Okay, now I can simply go ahead and say that instead of putting it maybe delay 3 seconds, I can just go ahead and put it here this number. So it is going to give this automatically, and here I can use a formatting, and I can, instead of giving this automatically, I can just use as a number. Okay, let's see now what happens. You can say please wait delaying by 5 seconds, and it is going to delay for 5 seconds. Okay, until it run the second code, whatever the code we have after this time. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. Now if I just run it again, now it is delaying 4 seconds. You will see it is going to delay it for 4 seconds, and then it is going to run the code, which is this. Okay, so this is what we will be using it here, just to make our function more interactive. Okay, so after somebody enter it, let's kind of create a variable first of all. So that's going to be something called seconds. In the seconds I want something called maybe random dot rand int. Okay, to kind of create a random second, which is one between 1 to kind of 4, or maybe we can use a 4. I think that's kind of fine. So it's going to randomly generate some numbers. Let's add a comment here called generating random number. Okay, that's fine. Once you have the seconds, then I can just kind of print the delay message. So let's add a kind of command called print delay message, and let's add a print message nicely. Please wait for whatever the seconds. I would just put it here, second. Okay, and I can just add a nice message called checking file checking kind of path. Okay, checking kind of file path. So here I would just need to replace it here I would just need to replace it with that kind of sleep time functions. Okay, so for that I can just go ahead and say that what I want is for I would just want to kind of show you this seconds, which is going to be this seconds. Okay, now once this message kind of shows, I want to delay the functions using which is called time.sleep. Okay, time.sleep, and inside it I would just use this second. Okay, which is automatically going to give me the seconds. Okay, so this is, I would just need to reuse it wherever I want to use it. Okay, to make this function interactive. So this is fine, a delay message, and this is going to be something like what I want to reuse it. So maybe here it's fine. Once the file path is existed, it's going to give the error or not, whatever it is. Now we would want to kind of show one more message. Wherever you have a print message, you can just show that. So here we can include one more message that before this if logic, if this file is kind of exist or not, but don't make it too much. But here let's say the file exists, we don't want to do anything else. Next we want to show a print message, which is here. Okay, maybe checking the file total number of counts. Okay, so we can go ahead and show it here. Let's put it here, and you can see here I have something called delay message. Please wait for the seconds, checking total columns and rows. Okay, so this is fine. Now I would need a kind of same thing again. It's going to delay again, and let's put some more delay messages to make it like more interactive. Again, this is not mandatory, so it's on you if in case you want to include it. So dataset total duplicates. Okay, now here I would just show that number of duplicates, right? So we would just add one more message here, kind of checking the duplicates. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that print delay message, please wait, checking total duplicates. Okay, checking duplicates. Fine, so duplicates, so this is kind of fine. Next I would just need one more here, maybe something like before the removing duplicates. Okay, deleting duplicates and storing duplicates. So I think here it is kind of saving the duplicates, and once here I can just add one more kind of call saving the duplicates. Okay, we can just go and say please wait for seconds, saving total columns and rows, or saving kind of what duplicates rows. Okay, so let's check checking duplicates, saving duplicate rows. Okay, next I'm not going to add too many, but last I would just add one more, which is here checking for the missing values. Okay, so let's go ahead and add something for here. Please wait, checking for missing records. Okay, missing values, and that's it. Lastly, I would just go ahead and add something called cleaning the datasets. Okay, so let's edit something here. Please wait for the seconds. Okay, cleaning the datasets. Okay, this is fine. And one more, let's add one more. Okay, so go ahead and add last message called please wait for these seconds, exporting datasets. Dataset is clean, please wait, exporting datasets, and maybe that is what I would just go ahead and kind of edit after this. Congratulations, but here it is kind of going to work fine. Okay, so these are all the messages that I wanted to use. Now this is kind of totally fine, this function is totally working. We can just go ahead and retest it. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it again. So to test it, I would just need to keep these two things, which is called data path and this kind of the file. Okay, so let's kind of go ahead and copy it, and either you can just directly go into your file and you can call these functions, or we can use something called if then underscore name. Okay, and this is something you just need to use, and you can just go ahead and say this underscore main. Okay, so this means that if in case somebody is going to kind of call these functions in this kind of another notebook, so this whatever I'm going to write it here is not going to be executed. Okay, so that means they would just import these functions, and they would call the functions, and they would be giving this values, like while calling the functions the values are data path and the data name. But somebody if in case directly going to execute this code, then I would want to execute something here. What I want to execute is that here I would want to kind of ask the path and file name, right? Path and file name. See, as soon as you execute this code, okay, first of all, as soon as you execute this code, you would be only getting one chance to execute this code. That means you would just need to ask the details as soon as you execute. Either you give it before kind of the functions, or you give it after the functions. Okay, because whenever you run the function, it has to ask like two things. One is called the file name and the data types, right? Then only this function is going to kind of execute it. The same thing we are doing it here. So this is something we would just define it here. So let's go ahead and put input parameters, and we can just go ahead and say, let's write a print message prompt which is called please enter. Okay, let's go ahead and say please enter dataset path. Okay, now this automatically take it as an input, so that's kind of really fine. So I can just go ahead and say here is that what I want, this call data path. Okay, let me just store it here. Okay, so I kind of miss it here. I just need to give two equals. There's equals. I'm saying if name equals main, then I would just need to use it here. So that's kind of fine. Let's go ahead and do next thing, which is we want to ask the data name. Okay, so let's see what else we need. We need which is called data name. So this is what we need, right? So dataset name. Let's go ahead and say that dataset name, whatever we are asking. So dataset name or data name, and we can just ask one more input, and I can just go ahead and say please enter dataset name. Okay, so to input, and once we capture the informations, we just call the function. So I'm saying calling the function. Okay, now how do you call the function is simply go ahead and you can say that the function name is what. Let's go ahead and see the function name. It's going to be data cleaning master. Okay, so it's going to, everything is going to be if logic. So that means if directly somebody execute this in the terminal, then only these things are going to happen. It's going to ask the path, it's going to ask the name. Okay, because when somebody will import this as a module, they would automatically give along with the function name, they would automatically run this code which I'm entering it here. Okay, so for that we would just go ahead and say that what this function is looking for, this path, that's going to be this path, and this function is looking for data name, that's going to be this. Okay, so that is it. Now we would just again show one nice greetings message to kind of say that welcome to data cleaning something like. So we would just go ahead and say welcome to data cleaning master. Okay, master. Okay, welcome to data cleaning master, and data path and data name we are asking from the user as a string, and then we are just putting it in the functions to call the functions. So somebody when they will call the function, they would just use this line, they are not going to use this line, and they will import, if they import this as a module, they are not going to kind of import this, so automatically this is going to be ignored. Okay, so this is the reason this line you need to add mandatory. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it, and let's now go ahead and check it. Okay, so before that let's kind of delete whatever we have done earlier. So these two records, let me just delete it. So let's go ahead and delete, and we are going to test on all those records that I have it here. So I'm just going to first again delete this as well, and whatever the duplicates I have, I will delete it. Okay, so now I have kind of which is called employees dataset, orders dataset, these are CSV, sales, and the Walmart. Okay, so we are going to test in all those four dataset of all these functions. Okay, so one I'm going to test it again the Walmart one in this terminal, then I'm going to check it in this test kind of Jupyter notebook. So let's go ahead and run in terminal. So first let's kind of give incorrect path. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to give something like this. Let's see. So it's saying so it's giving something, welcome to the data cleaning masters, thank you for giving the details, please wait 1 second, checking the file path, please enter the correct path. Okay, so that's fine. Let me just clear the terminal. Okay, so let's go ahead and add one more line here. So saying this one, which is called please enter the correct path. We can modify it something like this kind of, incorrect path, try again with correct path. Okay, let's save it. So let's try to run it in the terminal again. Right click, run in terminal. So you can see it is asking for please enter the dataset path name. So let's say I have a path name which is called Walmart dot maybe kind of sales dot xls. So let me just go ahead and add it, called, oops, not here. Yeah, so here I would just need to sales dot xl. I'm just entering something called incorrect. Okay, sales dot something like this, xlsx. Let's see if in case it can tell that okay, it's an incorrect path. File name, let's say I'm just saying sales. Thank you for giving the details. You see it waited for 2 seconds, which kind of make it interesting. So let me just make it little big. Okay, so you can see here it waited for 2 seconds. It's saying that please wait for 2 seconds, checking the file path, incorrect path, try again with the correct path. Okay, so that's fine. But here it should have given us the correct path informations, but it kind of say that okay, we need to run the function again. So we can achieve that as well using a while loop. So till the time the user doesn't enter the correct path, it is going to keep on asking the correct path. That is also possible, but I'm just not going to make it little that long. But I have already covered this in the previous video, so you can go ahead and kind of implement that in this if logic. Okay, so if, while, and true, what you need to use it. Okay, so you can do that and you can let me know what is going to be your approach. So let's try it again. So let's run it again, run in terminal. So run in terminal, and this time I'm just going to give the right path. Okay, so that's going to be something called sales. Oops, again I need to make sure that I click here, sales dot, and the extension is xlsx. Okay, let's see. So file name, I want to give it something called sales maybe 2024. Okay, something like this. Let's give it something called IBM sales. Okay, it said thank you for details, please wait 1 second, checking the file path, dataset is an Excel file, and you can see a lot of things are happening. So we will be reading one by one from the starting. So let's go ahead and see it here. Okay, so it says that dataset is Excel path, please wait for 1 second. So it waited for 1 second. Then it says the dataset contain total rows 24, total columns 10, please wait for 1 second, checking the total duplicates. And then it says dataset has a column duplicates row of 4. Then it says please wait for again 1 second, saving total duplicates rows, and please wait for 1 second, checking the missing values. It's only waiting for 1 second. We need to basically increase that a second if you want. So dataset has a total missing values 17. Dataset contain missing values by columns. So you can see each column's name nicely and number of missing values they have. Okay, then it says please wait for 1 second, cleaning the dataset, and then it did clean the datasets. And you would be able to see at the last here you would have something called please wait for 1 second, exporting the dataset, and congrats, dataset is cleaned. And you can see number of rows which is called 15. Here we have 15 rows and the columns 10. Dataset is saved. Okay, now if you see here is that IBM sales clean data. If you just click it here, and you would be able to see the clean data. Let me just make it zoom out. You can see this is the clean data. We have kind of 20 in all those columns, which is clean data, no missing values at the moment. If you want to check it in kind of Excel, I can just go ahead and show you in the Excel as well. So let's open it in Excel. So you can see that this time this data is clean, right? No nulls, no missings. Okay, we had some discount missing, so it is kind of replaced by mean. We have some missings in the quantity replaced by mean. We have some missing in the price replaced by mean. Okay, so unfortunately also replaced by for this customer's ID. Again, we cannot control it, but if you want to ignore it, then you need to write one line of more code here. Okay, so this was the actual data, which is this one, which had a lot of like missing values, and all those missing values are kind of fixed. Okay, and all this data is kind of totally clean. I can see the data set is completely clean. So that is the example one. Let's see the duplicate records. Okay, so for the, you just have this one which is called IBM sales duplicates. Let's open it. You can see all those records are duplicates. Okay, so they are captured separately here. So that is fine. Now let's go ahead and kind of test it with one more. Now kind of let's see if in case we can fix that 1 second when it is dealing only for 1 second. So we can go ahead and check it. Okay, I got it. So here the problem is that I'm only using one random to kind of creating this seconds. So this one I can kind of create this second every time separately. Instead of creating a variables, what I can do is that I can just go ahead and delete it and use these functions inside of every functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of put it here as well. Put it here as well. Okay. Yeah, for that we can again do this way, but I think that's not going to work fine. So what I can do is that we can create a variables in front of every kind of here. So let's go ahead and say that create a second variables here. Okay, and this second variable I want to create before every this delay message. So next one I want to create it something called print delay message here. Let's one I want to create something called print delay message here. Okay, so every time it's going to create a random numbers instead of one random numbers for the entire functions. So one delay message here. So here we are doing this duplicates delay message here, kind of checking the missing values. Here I would want to kind of change it to kind of maybe 10 seconds because this may take a little longer time to check the missing values and printing the delay message. So here again I would need to add one more delay message. I would just need to maybe edit something called 6 seconds. That's again on you how you want to kind of do that. One more delay message here. Okay, that's kind of fine. I would just add 1 to 5 seconds. All right, so that's fine. Let's kind of test it again. This time I'm going to test it for this, which is called maybe a CSV file that's called orders. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of run it in terminal. So right click, run in terminal. So it's asking for the enter the dataset path. So that's going to be this orders. Now this function will work for any dataset, even if you have the dataset somewhere else. So I can just go ahead and show you. Let's say I have some dataset in the desktop. Maybe let me just get a dataset from somewhere else. Okay, so now let's go and check this function for the file that is located in another function, another places. So I have a file which is in another folder. You can see it here. So I'm going to use it on this file which is called Amazon. Okay, so let me just copy this on the path, and let me just see if in case our function can kind of fix that, clean that dataset. So this dataset is kind of huge dataset. If you see, this dataset has a 10,000 plus sales record. Okay, let's see if our function can kind of work on this dataset which has a 10,000 plus records. Okay, so I'm just going to add some duplicates and then I'm going to kind of see if our function can kind of fix it. Okay, so let me just add some duplicates here, and I'm just going to add some kind of records from here, also some records from maybe somewhere else. Okay, also some records maybe from, I'm just going to delete some records from here as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if in case our function can kind of fix this one. Okay, so I would just copy this path from these folders. So right click, options, and something called copy path. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the functions with this path. Okay, so let me just kind of run in terminal. So Python run in terminal, and you can see now it is asking for the path. So here I just need to give my path, which is called control B. Oops, let me just click here and control B. Now here you see there is something called this kind of the quotes sign, because it's expecting a string. You don't have to give this quote sign. This is going to give an error. So I would just remove this quote sign from here. Also I need to remove this quote sign. Oops, I need to remove this quote sign from here, and I need to see if I can click it here. Okay, I cannot click it. So I would just need to kind of copy it again. You can see this path is incorrect. So let's try to copy the path again. So in a notepad. Okay, so let's copy the path correctly here in a notepad. I don't need this quote sign at the end and at the starting. So this is the path. We are going to check with this path. Okay, so let me just copy it. Let's run the function again. So we would say that right click, run in terminal. It's asking for again the path. So let's go ahead and put the path here. Oops, click here and give the path. You can see now path is correct. We do not have any quotes sign. Let's click enter, and let's give it a name called Amazon sales. Okay, thank you for giving the path. Please wait for 1 second checking the file path. Dataset is a CSV. Please wait for 1 second, and you can see that please wait for 4 seconds checking the duplicates. It could find that there are duplicates, which is 3 records, and then it's kind of saying please wait for 3 seconds. Okay, and you can see it has kind of done the things. Okay, so let's see it is kind of saying that, okay, so it's kind of saying that there are some missing values, which is called order date 14 and all those columns and their missing values. Total we have 166 missing values. Okay, that is fine. Please wait for 1 second cleaning the data. So here it has cleaned the data, and you can see number of rows that it is left with, which is 19961, and column which is 11. Okay, so that means it has cleaned the data. Now we can go ahead and verify it. You see two new file is created. One is called Amazon clean data CSV, one is called Amazon duplicates. Let's see the duplicate first of all. So you can see the duplicates are captured here, and let's see the clean data. So the clean data are, you can see, captured here. It is more than 10,000, so you can see all the clean data. Okay, that is fine. Let's now go ahead and save this file, and I'm just going to import this file and then in this notebook, and we will try to use the same function. So let's see the function name, that is called, which is called the data cleaning master. So I just need to use this name. Make sure they are in the same directory. So to import it, let's kind of say testing in notebook. Okay, now what I want to do is that we can go ahead and say here is that from main. Okay, so you need to give your file name. So the file name is main. You don't have to give the extension. I'm saying from main import, and what you want to import is that you need to give that name, which is called data clean. You can see by default it is kind of identifying. So from main import this data clean. If I just execute it, it's going to import the data. You can see now it is imported. This module, this function is imported. If you click it here, it's kind of saying that, okay, this data cleaning masters, and it expect two our input, which is called data path and data name. Okay, so we need to give these two things to call these functions. So this time we need to give the kind of path here, and then we need to give this kind of file name. So let's now try with something called maybe this Walmart. This time we are going to test it with the Walmarts, and then we're going to test it with orders. So let's first test with the Walmart. So I would say this time you need to give as a text. Okay, so Walmart dot xlsx. Okay, so this is name, this is the path. Let's give a name, call maybe something called, again name also must be string, so Walmart USA. Okay, now I'm intentionally going to give an incorrect path. Okay, so let's me just go ahead and say define something like this. Okay, let's see what happens. You can say thank you for giving the details, checking, please wait for 3 seconds, checking the file path. It's saying incorrect path, please try again with the correct path. Okay, so that means it kind of fixing if in case the path is incorrect. So let me just give the correct path, which is called Walmart now, and let's try it again. So at this time it's saying thank you for giving the details, waiting for 3 seconds, file is Excel file, please wait for 4 seconds, checking the total columns and rows. So 29 rows and 9 columns, 4 seconds, total duplicates 10 duplicates we have. Okay, waiting for 3 seconds, then again checking the missing values. So this time we will see the missing values that this can identify. So you can see it has missing values, which is called 14 total missing values, and you can see a lot of things here. Now each columns and their missing values, branch for age 10, we already have seen this in the starting of this video. So now you can see that please wait for 5 seconds, and the congratulations data is clean, 15 row left, 9 columns, and data set is saved. So if you see here Walmart USA clean data, which is here, and Walmart duplicate data, which is here. Okay, so that is fine. Next we want to try with just last, which is called orders. Okay, that's going to be our last task. So let's go ahead and kind of add a new cell here and try with orders. So I would just go ahead and say data cleaning masters, as it is already imported. I don't have to import it again. So what I need is that orders of the CSV file, and let's go ahead and give a name called maybe something called Flipkart. Okay, sales data. Okay, or maybe Flipkart orders data. Let's run it. You can see that it is going to do the same thing, and it is going to say that please wait, and checking the duplicates. It could see the total number 996, columns 5, number of duplicates 9. Okay, then it is checking the missing values. Okay, so everything it is doing the same thing. We have order date has 4 missing values, and kind of the product ID, and although sale has 45 missing values, we also have checked this one, and you can see congratulations data is clean, and this is what it is done. So let's go ahead and kind of see this, which is called Flipkart clean data, which you can see it here. It's the clean data, everything is clean. Duplicates, these are the duplicates. Okay, all right, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. I hope you have learned a lot of new concept. I would just request you to practice again 2 or 3 times along with me in the video, and all the resources, all the files I'm going to add in the video descriptions, so you can download all the file, all the resources, even my code as well, which you can kind of kind of write by yourself and check if in case you if in case there is any mistake in your code. So you can compare it with my code and you can completely include this project in your resume. You can hyper tune it a bit more, you can add more kind of parameters as well, and then you can basically include that in your resume if you want to include it. And I really appreciate all of you for watching this video. Have a good day, take care, bye bye, see you tomorrow.